Hey everybody, this is Larry the Cable Guy. Check this out. So I'm in my truck driving with my buddy, and we was heading up to the men's warehouse to fart in the suits, and he's listening to his phone, and I said, that sounds like Hermie Sadler. He said, it is Hermie Sadler. He's got a podcast called Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I said, Sadler and the Senator? He said, yeah, that's his good buddy, Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I said, well, what in the world? He didn't know this. I said, did you know that Hermie Sadler was voted one of the 50 best looking drivers in NASCAR? He said, I did not know that. I said, because it ain't true. You never know, though. He never takes off his helmet. But I know one thing, this show Leaning Right, Turning Left is good. So pull up a chair right there by your phone, get yourself a cold beer, and give a listen right here to this week's episode of Leaning Right, Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'll tell you what, I bet Michael Waltrip's even listening. He's always wanted to do something like that. Oh, Sadler, got another one over on Waltrip. Get her done.
Thank you, Larry the Cable Guy. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley in my last week here at the General Assembly 2024 session.
You want to bet?
And I'm not only leaning right, I've fallen over to right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator. It's powered by Pace-O-Matic, and we're back in Richmond for another episode. And how's your week been?
Ask me on Saturday. We're supposed to go out on Saturday. It's the final throes of the General Assembly session. Right now, all bills have really been considered by committees. They're on the floor. There's still a little bit of debate. A lot of bad bills from the Democrats, not very many, bills from the Republicans left. The House flooded the Senate with a bunch of bills. We sent much less over. So they get to go out early, and we're the ones stuck doing the Lord's work, trying to work through these bills. A lot of 21-19 votes, Republican 19, Democrat 21. A lot of bills going to the governor's office that are going to be vetoed. And we've got a budget to put on the table for everybody to consider on Thursday. So we've been working hard, and it's chaos in the last minutes.
You want to ask me how my weekend was?
No, man, I'm only focused on myself. But how was your weekend?
My weekend was.
By the way, hey, Hermie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. Hope you are. Good.
We're here in Richmond.
Yeah,
in my world-class apartment.
Yeah.
You weren't hurt coming in, so that's good.
No, it's great. Yeah, I've found an alternate route. I came by the Krispy Kreme, and for the first time,
was the light on?
The light was on, and I almost stopped and brought a dozen to the party.
Okay, we're going to stop recording. The light still hopefully
the light is on,
and you need to go back, and then we'll start.
I'll come by it every time, just so this is the first time in a month the light has been on.
Funny story. I got Aaron Arnold from Camping World. Yeah. Sold me my campers. I overpaid for and got less on a trade-in. I said, you need to be in politics. So now he's my legislative aide. We're driving by early in the session. We're driving down West Broad Street, heading towards the hotel. And the light was on. It was the evening time. And, it glows.
Did y'all pull in?
Yes, I did. And I said, man, I'm getting the donuts. And then I realized that my man Aaron Arnold here is gluten-free. He falls over.
Well, that's not your problem.
Breathe. I know, but I felt guilty. It'd be like
Bill.
Be like reading a Playboy magazine in front of your wife or something.
You got to get over that
or something. I mean,
because
you can't do that.
5 or 6 Krispy Kreme hot donuts now with a cold glass of milk
all day long.
Yeah. But anyway,
but I was there. And then I pulled through, and then I was right in the drive-through. I pulled.
Send Richard Krause over there.
Yeah, okay. We'll get that going.
Send your other affiliate.
Yeah. You let the production of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler in the Center down by not bringing hot donuts. Because here's how our podcast
I thought about
our podcast would be. So Hermie, what's going on? Nom.
But to answer your question, I had a fun weekend overall. I went down to Florence, South Carolina.
Yeah, let's talk racing
for the season debut of the new Sadler Stanley Racing team, and we had a good day there. We had a Luke Baldwin.
Got 2 new drivers.
Yeah, Luke Baldwin, Jonathan Cash. Luke qualified second, finished 5th, really had a second place car, did a great job. We had like it always happens, seemed like a late race restart and got shuffled back a little bit. Jonathan Cash had about a 7th or 8th place car. He got run down into the wall, you might say, and bent up some steering components on the 16 car.
Saw that.
But anyway,
Flow Racing. I watched it here from Richmond.
Yeah. So, and look, Haley and I, we were on a tour. We Haley and I went to the Outer Banks for a couple of days. I'm trying to get some things done to the house down there. And then we drove from there all the way to Florence, which is about a 5.5 hour drive.
From where you were?
From the Outer Banks to Florence, South Carolina, yes. And that's not including taking the ferry plug more. That is staying on the highway and doing it. And then Sunday, let me say, I'll say all this to say, I was supposed to be in Columbus, Georgia, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with Naomi at the season beginning Division III leadoff softball tournament. And Mother Nature messed that up. So Randolph Macon ended up not going to the tournament. So it kind of freed me up some days. So I went and took care of some things at the Outer Banks, went to the Sadler Stanley race and the Smart Modified Tour in Florence. And then on Sunday, I went down to Greensboro. Our buddy Jeff Jarrett, who now works for AEW, All Elite Wrestling, they had a pay-per-view at the Greensboro Coliseum Sunday night that featured Sting's last match.
Wow.
And so I went down and spent the day in Greensboro and saw so many people that I hadn't seen in forever and ever. I saw Ric Flair. I saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I saw Jay Riso, who wrestles as Christian Cage. He used to buy cars from me. Funny story about Christian Cage, and we laughed about it. It's funny now. Wasn't funny then. Probably 2004. Christian, he was then with WWF, bought a brand. I was in the car business in those days.
Known as Christian Cage.
Christian Cage. Okay. Bought a brand new Cadillac Escalade from me. We had it drop shipped to the Cadillac dealer down in St. Petersburg, Florida. He picked it up. The next day, his wife got on the bad end of a parking lot. What do you call the thing that goes up and down when you come in out of the parking lot?
The arm.
Yeah, the arm of the parking lot. As she was driving in, the arm came down on top of the Escalade, and it had like 14 miles on it. And so, I mean, he was so mad back in those days. Oh no, he had to take it to the body shop.
Oh, okay.
But we laughed about that. I got to see, and so many people, Samoa Joe and all these people.
How's Nature Boy doing?
Slow, but like myself, slow. But he wanted to be there at Sting's last match. He actually was in the match a little bit. So was Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat used to come watch me race all the time, and he's bought cars from me over the years. And I saw, of course, Jeff and Karen and Jay Lethal, and I said Samoa Joe, and it's a kid used to be from South Boston, Adam Page. He's now called Hangman Adam Page. He's one of the top stars in AEW. He walked up to me and we started talking. He said, "Dude, do you know the first wrestling show I went to?" And I said, "What was it?" He said, which he meant my UWF house show at the Halifax High School in South Boston in 2005.
Wow.
He said, "That show made me want to be a wrestler. Y'all let me get up in the ring. I was a middle school student. Y'all let me get up in the ring, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a wrestler." And this guy is one of the top 3 names in the company of AEW.
Look at you, Hermie. I mean, you make people's dreams come true. Shep Moss become town councilman.
I had fun.
I mean, the list is long that you do that, but that's great. So, so you had a good time.
Yeah.
I stayed up here in Richmond, not having a good time, away from my family. But it's the last week here in the General Assembly. But I was watching racing. I mean, I was watching on Flow Racing, the Smart Series, watching our cars, first time out. Mm-hmm. They did really well in practice. They did really well in qualifying. You just talked a little bit about that. But Luke Baldwin, 17 years old, comes out with a top 5 finish.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. And he was fun to watch.
That was the worst he could have finished in that race.
He took care of the equipment. Yeah. I mean, he was not doing things that usually get young people in trouble.
Yeah.
Like well, that really helps. Past a curfew.
Well, when you got a fast car, which we do, and he qualified well, which he did, he could run with the pace of the leaders and not have to overextend his car. That Florence is a kind of racetrack that really chews up tires really bad. There's a lot of fall off. You start off running, say, in the 17, 10, 17, 15 second bracket. With 5 laps into the race, you're running 1850s. You slow down a second and a half.
Wow.
Because the cars just lose so much grip.
It looks slow out there.
Yeah.
It looks
so on a racetrack that's coarse, that cuts rubber, it's kind of like a cheese grater. If you run some across a cheese grater like you cut the cheese off.
Right.
Same way with a tire on that kind of racetrack. If you slide, if you overdrive the car and slide up the racetrack, that type of a racetrack cuts the rubber off the tires. So you have to be careful.
It cuts the cheese.
So you have to be careful not to overdrive your car. And Luke did a great job with that. Yeah. So I was happy I was there for that. I talked to his dad, Tommy, after the race. And
how was he?
Great. He was actually in Vegas, because he's with Spire Motorsports. But he was in Vegas. And so I talked to him on the way home from the race. And we talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, what we want to try to do different, things we want to change. Because while we're excited about Luke's first race and what he did, we've also got to remember he's 17 years old, right, and it's his first race. Right. So, but he didn't get rattled, when the veterans got up to him and bumped him a little bit. He hung him there, did great.
He's running there with Hirschman and Burt
and that's really what's exciting to me with what we've got. We've got Jonathan Cash, who, in my view, is a journeyman racer, never had the money to really do it right. We're giving him an opportunity. Then with Luke, we've got a chance to create our own racing superstar.
Yeah, the beginning of a great career.
That we could have something to do with,
right,
that we could be proud of 5-10 years down the road. Yeah. And then, like, starting this weekend at Caraway, we got our 2 full-time drivers, and then we throw back in Bobby Labonte into the mix, our Hall of Famer.
Labonte's back.
That he's going to do a handful of races this year, and so he's back on track for us this year. So we got the right mix of experience and new driver, and the guy everybody knows. So it's
Labonte's coming back. He's still running races because he's got some opportunities in NASCAR executive.
Yep.
But yet he's still got the racing passion, and he's very, very loyal to us and very, very much one of our great friends.
Sure.
And so that's pretty exciting. But you know what was really exciting? Listening to Luke Baldwin after he got out of the car, talking about his first race experience in a tour type modified, and how he finished P5. And I've got the tape, and let's listen to that.
Well, at the end of 99 laps, Luke Baldwin, he was fastest in practice. He drew the outside pole, come home with a top 5 finish. Tell us about your day.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. We came and tested a couple weeks ago, and I really brought my confidence up a lot when we showed great speed there. Came to practice, surprised myself, honestly, to go top of the boards like that. And in qualifying, I honestly thought I was in rough shape after qualifying. I messed up lap 2 pretty bad, but we got a little lucky and busted off a good one on lap 1 and drew the 2, and the race went really well. I'm really proud of myself for keeping pace with those guys and keeping the tires on it until about whatever that last restart was. But that's something I've always struggled with in the distance races. So to end up 5th, I'm super happy with. First Smart Tour race, that's pretty cool. I mean, we were probably a race-winning car or a second-place car, at least 3rd. But just some more experience, and I think I'll get there.
What do you think that you learned during the race you could have done differently to get a few more spots?
Really, it's just the main thing is that last restart. I spun the tires a little bit getting going, got them a little hot, drove it into 1, put a little too much rear brake in it, and got a little free up through 1 and 2. And from then on out, once you get the right rears sliding and spinning and hot, you're kind of along for the ride here. So I'll just try to keep what I can get. Me and Joey Coulter got to do it a little bit, just going for the same spot. But that's hard racing. You'll have that, and I'm like I said, I'm super ecstatic about this result.
Did Dad call you?
Not yet. Not yet. So
congratulations, great run. Top 5 finish for Luke Baldwin in his very first Smart Modified Tour race.
How about that?
It's great.
It's great to hear a 17-year-old so excited.
Refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a pro.
Yeah.
He's learning the game. He did really well. And then while being surprised of himself at the same time, he knows he can do better.
And nothing wrong with saying I'm pretty proud of myself. I think that's great but
you got to have that kind of confidence going around.
The cool thing for me during the course of the day, he kept, because he was not only racing himself, he was also helping his brother, Jack, who was running a 602 modified down there in Florence the same day. But Luke kept coming by, and, we were during the course of the day, and we were talking about the car and all that. And he said, man, this is fun.
Good.
This is fun. So
it sounded like everybody in the pits was having a good time.
It was great. Yeah. I mean,
and that's important.
Ultimately, the advantage of having 2 cars on the track is only an advantage if our 2 cars work together. and take advantage of, every time there's a practice session, we get 2 sets of information and feedback, 2 opportunities to learn. So if we do that every practice session, every qualifying session during the course of a year, you would think that we gain more information. That's why, it's commonplace now, but Rick Hendrick, 30 years ago started, let's take 2 cars.
Right.
And so that was fun. Now we got Caraway this weekend, which
Sunday race.
Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, has been a track that we've struggled at as a team.
We have.
And so we've already tested there
Almost
twice.
turned a car over there one night.
Yeah, well, that's an unfortunate incident. I'm speaking more in terms of overall
Jonathan
speed.
Brown, he ran the rail
Yeah.
with his wheels.
I'm talking
locked
about
into the top of
overall
the
in
wall.
terms of our ability to qualify and run up front. We've been about a 10th place car about every time we've been there, but we've tested twice already, and we're making some gains and some changes. And of course, we're taking 3 cars this weekend to that race with Jonathan, Luke, and Bobby Labonte. So we're putting all our resources in play and going to try to build on what we did at Florence and see where it takes us.
Tell me why Smart runs there 3 times now this year.
I don't know. You're the attorney for the series and got, a bat phone to the series director. So maybe you ask him.
Okay.
My job is to
I hate that.
help us get our cars to the track and be as competitive as we can be wherever we're racing.
Tough track.
Yeah.
Tough
But it's
track.
been tough for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to make some gains there. That's why we spent, because if we're going to go there that many times this year, how you run at Caraway could say a lot about who's going to win the championship.
It's going to be fun. And the series is sponsored by Pacematic, who, of course, sponsors this podcast, of course, who, I've disclosed forever. And we had those previous podcasts about my representation of Pacematic. They wanted to sponsor our team. They believed in what we were doing, the message we were putting out, sponsored the race. They've been really involved in local events and issues, saving short tracks. I mean, they've done a great job. But the reason I bring that up is because this week has actually been a significant week in what we've been doing and what we've been talking about for 2 years on this podcast, nearly 3 years, was our lawsuit to save small businesses, to help them, and to allow skill games to be a part of the gaming industry for small businesses and not leave the casinos to be a monopoly in terms of this new emerging gambling industry, which I was against. But now we have actually this week, a bill has passed out, a conference committee report has passed out of Virginia's House and Senate with enough votes to go to the governor. And Herm, I got to tell you, after our 3-year battle, it seems like we're on the right track to maybe bring fairness and a level playing field to these businesses in Virginia, finally, once and for all.
Yeah. And the way I view that is, for the 2.5 years that the games were operating in these stores, we saved a lot of businesses. We saved a lot of jobs. We saved a lot of livelihoods, all these things.
Tough economy, COVID, everything else.
It's not something that you hear a lot
difference.
about in Richmond and in politics because this has been such a politically charged topic. The messaging of the whole thing has been really misleading from the very beginning of what's important and why we fought. We've never sat down and had a conversation of let's fight for the gaming industry.
No.
Never been that.
No.
It's been the gaming industry is here. That's already been decided. That horse is out of the barn. Why are we allowing the casinos to formulate a monopoly and exclude the small businesses that are the backbones of these economies, especially in areas like we live in? That's what our fight has always been about.
Yep.
How can you let the big shiny lights of the casino across the street be the only show in town in every town?
Yeah.
If gambling is here, y'all brought it here. Y'all wanted the revenue. Y'all needed it. Now you've let them in. Now the casinos have slowly tried to take over and run the legislation, run the General Assembly on this topic.
Capitalize on the political marketplace and the legal, legitimate marketplace.
But this, for me and you, it's never been, we're fighting for the gaming industry. We're not. We're fighting for the rights of small businesses. And I say, look, I know there's a lot of people, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this in this segment coming up. The biggest thing to me, and we all view things, Bill, whether it's skill game legislation or other things related to government or life or whatever. We view things through the lens of how we grew up and our experiences as we're growing up and becoming, and I saw my dad as he was building his company take chance after chance after chance after chance, borrow, mortgage to the gills, take a chance, hire people, compete. You compete with the people across the street and in your town. Competition makes everybody better. If you run your business better than the guy across the street, that's what's supposed to decide who gets ahead, right?
Yeah.
Not what the government says.
Of course.
So
That's
I grow up now
free market
and
system.
I retired from racing and TV when my dad started to get older and have some health problems. My dad finally said, "Look, we got this company. What are we going to do? Are you going to come home and help me? What are you going to do?" And, so I'm charged with maintaining and growing our business that my dad started with nothing and built it to a certain point. So now I'm in charge of it all. And you've got the government coming to say, okay, small business, including Sadlers, we're going to take this right away from you and give it to the casinos because we want them to have it and not you. And so
let's talk about that a little bit. I think it's deserving of a recap. We have all of these, so many shows through the 90-something that we've done, where we've walked everyone through what was a grassroots movement to protect small businesses against big corporations and government overreach, right?
Right.
I mean, walk the audience through a little bit here so we get to this culmination and discuss where we are right now. Walk through your experience in terms of, you're Hermie Sadler, NASCAR former driver and Fox Sports analyst. Now you're running a gas station. Now you got these skill games in your business. And suddenly the government says you are committing a crime if you have those games in your business establishment. Walk the audience through what you did to get us to this point.
Well, first thing I'll say is we've operated some type of skill game. Let's just talk about our truck stop in Emporia. We've operated some type of a skill game at our truck stop in Emporia, as was testified to in court, since the mid-1980s. And when people think about skill games, and skill games is not just the Pace-O-Matic style games. It's pinball type machines. We had like dartboards, Pac-Mans, all these different types of machines. We've had them since the mid-1980s. Now, when you talk about gaming, first thing people want to talk about is revenue. And is revenue a part of what makes it meaningful to businesses like mine? It's certainly a part of it. But here's the rest of the story. When we have these games in our truck stops over the years, it helped us compete with entertainment options for these truck drivers and these trucking companies that are hauling the mail all across this United States. When they're looking for a place to stop and spend a night or 2 nights and spend their hard-earned money, they have choices. We need to, as business owners, give our truck drivers as many options as we possibly can of things to do while they're at our facility. So if another truck stop in another location or another truck stop in another state or in South Carolina, whatever, has these entertainment options for their people to stop and we don't, that puts us at a disadvantage. So yes, revenue is a part of it, always has been, always will be, not going to deny it. But it's also a draw to get people to want to stop and spend money in our facilities and in our localities. And that means restaurant, convenience stores, all these other things. It draws people there to get them to do it. The other thing that skill games have always done for us is it keeps people in the stores, especially sometimes in the evening, like from the 3 to 8, 3 to 9 time frame when people get off work. It keeps our cashiers from being there and working alone. and it draws people in to play the skill games. While they're playing the skill games, they're also buying lottery tickets. They're buying popcorn, soft drinks, Snickers bars.
Right.
Spending money. And so, and we've had this since the mid 1980s, different variations of it. There's been all different kinds of games that the skill of the player determines the outcome. And there's not been one thing said about them until the casinos came to town.
And let's talk about that. What happened next?
Well,
let's re-educate the viewer, the listener. Many people are following this podcast. They're hearing this again for maybe the regurgitation of 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of new listeners. We're here at the culmination where skill games are on the verge of becoming legal and regulated and taxed in Virginia.
Right.
Talk about what you did.
Well, we were running them
when that happened.
And in our case, we did everything the right way. We had the facility. It was well lit, well staffed. We paid taxes. We did all that. Then in maybe the fall of some of the fall of 2019, I started to get phone calls from some of the distributors and suppliers of these skill games. And they said, Hermie, we were really worried that people are going to start coming after the legal operation of these skill games in places like yours. And it coincided with the casinos coming into town and slowly getting traction in the General Assembly and getting more people on their side and more lobbyists and more legislators and all that. So I immediately started to get more involved and try to learn more about. I tried to come talk to legislators. I tried to talk to everybody in the House of Delegates and in the Senate. Some people would talk to me. Some people wouldn't. Some people were open-minded. Some people already got their wallet full and didn't want to talk, all that. So, but ultimately in 2021, and I was involved in this with Ralph Northam and Carter Hutchinson and some of the people in that administration. Ralph Northam is the one.
Professed support for skill.
Yes. We did a 1 year. Well, the bad thing Ralph Northam did was he signed SB 971 to ban the legal operation of skill games in convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants, and bars. Yeah. And he did that
because of the casino effort.
Because of the casino effort. The casinos put a lot of pressure.
But then...
And he did that, and I've been around you enough as a lawyer to say this. In my opinion, Northam did that while knowing all along that bill he signed was going to have a hard time passing constitutional challenges. My opinion. So he signed the bill to ban these games, and then in the process, I spent several days meeting with he and his staff and Carter Hutchinson and all these other people who was a policy director for him at the time, and Clark Mercer, chief of staff, all that. I think they kind of threw us a bone and said, hey, we've already, the bill has been signed, like it or not, right, wrong, or indifferent, but we hate to see these games and this revenue go away for these small businesses right in the middle of a pandemic. So they agreed to do a 12-month period where they put the enforcement and regulation enforcement and taxation collection under the umbrella of ABC.
Waiving 971 for 1 year.
They kicked it down the road for 1 year.
During pandemic.
During the pandemic, so that small businesses that were doing it the right way and had the right type of games, and I'll say this again, a skill game is a game where the skill of the player can determine the outcome of the game. It's not a game of chance, where you put your money in and push a button.
It's kind of like a ring toss at a carnival, right? I mean, if you have the skill to shoot the basket or do whatever, you're going to win a prize.
If you like sitting down playing Pac-Man,
not a game of chance.
If you play Pac-Man and know the patterns, and you know you're going to get a free man every 3 screens,
you can play for hours.
Are you really gambling?
Well, in the Supreme Court of the United States, we've said this before. We had this in our pleadings, that interactive games, like Grand Theft Auto was tried to be banned in California, of all places. And they determined that was an interactive free speech exchange between the player and the game itself that emitted a message, and that's protected. That's what these skill games fell under. in terms of the protection. And that's what we ultimately sued on, right?
Yep. And so we did the SB 971 was signed. We did the 1 year tax and regulation period, which not only saved a lot of small businesses, also generated about $140 million or so bill for the, in revenue raised during that period, $150 million, something like that.
Yep.
We proved that the people that do this the right way and run the right type of games, it was a win-win for everybody. And so then when we realized that at the end of the 1 year period, that there was no real mechanism to not only keep the revenue stream flowing for these small businesses, but it was much bigger than that, has been since day one. I felt like from the start that we were violating the constitutional rights of these small businesses. So I wanted to and decided to and come talk to you, which I'll admit, when I first came to your office on this issue, I knew your position on gambling.
Yeah.
You've never voted for a single gambling bill in your life. But
love you, don't like what that was.
This was about much more than gambling to me. And ultimately with you, we're not just talking about gaming. We're talking about government overreach, and we're talking about trampling the constitutional rights of small businesses in the Commonwealth of Virginia and what precedent that would set moving forward.
Well, and don't forget, I mean, when you came to me and you explained what was going on, you knew I was against gambling. I told all of the, skill games of chance people, don't come to my office. You don't need to be there. But of course you can be there. And then you explained what was going on. And you made me dig deeper, and you answered my questions. You gave me examples. We talked about it a lot. And then I saw when I saw the door that was opened by the legislature in a vote that I lost, we had banned gambling games of chance in Virginia forever. We allowed sports betting in through fantasy. We were, incrementally allowing it. We started with the lottery, which is the numbers racket. And so, here we were, I vote no. They're trying to put casinos in Danville that I represented at the time. I said, no, that gives up on economic development. It doesn't help. And you came to me and said, okay, agree with your position on gambling. But if you're going to allow it here, you're leaving small businesses in Virginia on the side of the road. You convinced me of that, because I don't like gambling, but being unfair, especially if I lost that vote and the door's open,
right?
Then why aren't Virginians participating in it other than spending their money that goes to the out-of-town, out-of-state casinos and is never to be seen again? And that's why you convinced me and changed my viewpoint on when it came to skill games. Now, if you'd come to me with like, hey man, I want slot machines in my truck stop, I wouldn't have been for you.
Right.
I don't think even with our friendship that would have changed. But these things were different because it harkened back to a time where man versus machine, constitutional protections on free speech, the things that were bigger than an industry such as the casino industry. And that really convinced me. And I give you credit on that. But then that caused us to go even crazier and do things that no one thought we could do. Nobody thought we could accomplish. And you tell me how we approached filing a lawsuit and being successful, helping.
Well, it all started on a cold winter night in Wintergreen, Virginia.
It did.
On the patio of the Stanley Estate condo at Wintergreen Resort.
We were feeling no cold though.
We
had an evening.
It was 12 degrees below zero, and I was sweating bullets. But we got
and then
together.
I saw a mouse, and that's another story.
We, it's kind of one of those things where, and I've said this basically in lockstep with you, I would be okay tomorrow if the Commonwealth of Virginia said, we're going to get rid of all gaming in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That includes casinos. That includes skill games. Mm-hmm. That includes fantasy, everything. What I have not liked from the beginning is the simple notion of you can do this, but you can't. And that's based on what? Is it based on my ability? No. It's based on this is what we say.
The government winners and losers.
We're going to pick winners and losers, and we know who's going to win and who's going to lose. And it has nothing to do with competition. with hiring the best employees, with keeping your bathrooms clean, keeping your prices competitive, nothing like that. Simply the government. And so we filed a lawsuit in June of 2021.
On a lark?
And challenge.
And we're not, and we did this on our own. Totally grassroots. You and me.
We did.
We just decided to do it. Pace-O-Matic came along in support in the back end, but we thought
let's tell the truth. Nobody thought when you and I hatched this idea in Wintergreen, nobody, and to be honest with you, including me, thought we would ever even get a date in court because we're against a Goliath of, I mean, casino people are very.
971 passes the prohibition against the ban is lifted. July 1, we filed our thing in late June.
Right. We filed in like
December to seek an
second
injunction.
week of June, and in July 1 is when the game shut down, when the game's cut off.
And I remember being on the Capitol steps, hot June day, probably the hottest day ever.
Yeah.
I had to get rid of the shirt I was wearing. I sweated through it so bad. And it was just you and me. But nobody else.
So
just you and me.
People laughed at me. They probably ridiculed at you.
Oh, yeah.
I was told.
No, I was a fool. I mean, all the
never
big law firms and lobbyists said we were a fool.
It said you'll never get a day in court.
Yep.
So ultimately, we got our first day in court, and things started to go our way. People started to really realize what is the purpose of the government. It certainly ain't this.
Yeah.
And as we started to get some traction, then people started to be willing to listen to what we were doing and why, and join the fight in some ways, show up at court. I mean, small business owners from across the Commonwealth of Virginia
used to have big crowds outside
showing
the
up
courthouses
by the busloads.
Yep.
At the courthouse in Greensville County, saying
we filed our lawsuit. We didn't rush to court. We built a case. We tried it in December, 2 years, 23?
December 2021.
Got the games back, turned back on.
Yeah.
Temporary injunction granted. We go through the next process. The AG's office, Attorney General of Virginia's fighting us. Casinos are getting them to appeal, writing amicus briefs. We win that. We go through. These businesses are able to establish and maintain and sustain and thrive with these games in. Obviously, there was no big problem. And we get to the Supreme Court vacated our injunction based on a certain legislator who we just highlighted last week.
We lowlighted.
Riding into the budget.
Lowlighted him.
Riding into the budget, however you want to say it.
I want to say lowlighted him.
Something that changed our lawsuit fundamentally. And we demonstrated how that was kind of hypocritical.
Yeah.
Based on what then that person tried to do this year. Vacated injunction. Awoken the slumbering giant. Momentum was created. And I think Pace-O-Matic's actual involvement in Virginia communities in an earnest way, it's a great company. We've talked about that before. But actually getting engaged in the race car, the short track racing industry, modifieds, the things they've done to be a part of the communities that they serve or where their machines are, really made a difference. And when we came into this legislature, very contentious up front. We've recorded it. We've talked about it. But we got a bill through that actually may legalize skill games once and for all.
I want to make one more point, and we'll get back to fast forward back to today. When I started coming to the General Assembly, even as early as probably 2019, early 2020, all the way through to the time in 2021 when we filed the lawsuit, the biggest thing that shocked me was how poorly the skill game industry was viewed by legislators in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
They were wearing the black hat.
So, and I didn't know at that time, I didn't know people with Pace-O-Matic. I didn't know the Paces. I didn't know the manufacturers. I didn't know all these other people. I just knew when I came to Richmond and tried to start talking to people about this issue, basically I was getting a lot of this. Hermie, I like you, but these people, this whole industry, they came in through the back door in the middle of the night and they're
gray games,
crooks and they're robbers and they're thieves and they're all this.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I don't know these people, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know the whole history of why they've agitated so many of y'all in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I says, but let me remind you of something. What are people like me? If you hate them, so I immediately, and small business owners across the whole Commonwealth of Virginia, in this moment when it's never been more difficult than it is today to run a small business, because you don't like them, I didn't do, so I'm just collateral damage. You don't like this person, so everybody else just, to hell with everybody, to hell with the small businesses and all the mom and pops and all the sometimes first and second generation.
Well, in politics, they get case of the ass.
Americans, but these people are trying to live the American dream.
Yeah. But
you're going to step on them because.
But they didn't think about it that way.
No, they did not.
At that time thought about a big company.
It went straight from.
Or like a casino competitor, and they didn't want to deal with it, and they felt like they didn't act properly the first way up.
Right.
The first time in front. And so the casinos were able to wipe them away.
Right.
Not thinking about small business owners like you.
Yeah.
That how this affected the Virginia economy until COVID.
A different issue, but I know I look at things probably different than a lot of other people. Hell, I'm crazy enough to do all the stuff that we've done because I believe certain things and maybe other people don't. But
we haven't run naked around a racetrack, has it?
That's coming soon.
Is that this year?
To a track near you.
Sweet. Can it be dark?
I mean, if there's a product like I carry in my stores, we've had all these things, these woke things.
In your stores?
Bud Light. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay.
Bud Light. Just because you may not like what Bud Light did or whatever, if they're available, if I've got a contract to carry them in my store, you can't, what, you gonna take that out on me? It's just.
Yes.
The unintended consequences sometimes with people in government, they don't see the whole picture. Like I came over here.
How it hurts the little guy.
All I heard about was we don't like the way the skill game industry went around us and they've done all these bad things. And number two, the casinos are our little golden child and we got to protect them at all costs. And that's all I heard.
They're building $5-10 million, event spaces in certain areas that were economically distressed, like Bristol, like Portsmouth, like Petersburg, like Norfolk, like Danville. They were the savior. They were the panacea to save these economies that were once the top of the food chain in Virginia. And they bought into that crap, and they forgot the small business owner. That's where we started our fight, and we're successful.
And I say that just to come back to this 3-year process to get us to the point where today we've got a piece of legislation going to the governor's desk.
Yeah.
I think this 3-year process and the icing on the cake of this 3-year process is the day when the Supreme Court of Virginia vacated our injunction when all the casino lobbyists were calling me and you were saying, nanny boo boo, we win, you lose. That's really and truly when the tide really turned the other way, when some of these legislators started to say, these skill game manufacturers that have been spending time in Richmond in 3 years, they don't seem like such bad people. All of these convenience store owners and mom and pop operators and Asian Americans and people that are running these businesses, they seem like hardworking people just trying to make a living for their family. They don't look so bad to me. Why does it have to be one or the other? Why does it have to be them and not us? Why can't they do their deal and we do our deal with the guardrails that we're trying to put in place and leave the door open for everybody? We got people to come to our place to play skill games that are not going to go to Portsmouth. They're not going to go to Danville. They're not going to go to Rosie's. They're not going to go here. But we shut them out, And so I got big time in Richmond when I first came because they didn't want to hear from me. It was, these skill game people, they are just they've pissed me off, and these casinos, we got to protect them at all costs. And I just didn't take no for an answer. I said, you're going to have to sit here.
No, you didn't.
You're going to have to sit here, whether it be in your office or in this hallway or in the newspaper or whatever. You're going to have to explain to people like me why it's got to be them and not both. I'm not asking for casinos. If gambling's here and gambling's here to stay, I'm not asking for the casinos to be shut down. I'm asking for them to have fair government and a level playing field. And I got so many people looked at me with like I had three heads during this process. And if you look at the Republican creed in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the first thing that it addresses is we believe the free enterprise system trumps all. So why are you going to allow, as a conservative or a Republican, why are you going to support something that flies right in the face of the free enterprise system? Because that's what happens when the government starts dictating who wins and loses and starts telling people where they're supposed to go spend their money. So I think this 3-year period of time, people started to, and I even heard some floor speeches during the skill game debate this year from people that in the past were hard-nosed. And now they were like, now I know some of these people, and I've heard some of these stories. I've met some of these people that kept their job because of these games being kept operational during Hermie's lawsuit. And so we were able to, and we talked about it last week, but all these commercials and these dark commercials that these casinos are running, they want you to think that, 15 people get shot in Emporia at Sadler Travel Plaza every night, and we proved in court that that's not the element that we have.
No criminal element.
That's not the element that we cater to.
Enforcement
we don't let underage people. We value our business. We value our ABC license. We play by the rules. So the messaging that they put out there is, boy, I mean, this is just a bunch of fly-by-nights that don't know how to run their businesses, and the crime element is horrible, and they can't be regulated. We proved all that wrong. They can be regulated. They were regulated. The people that did it right got rewarded as they should have. The people that do it wrong should be stripped of their obligation or opportunity to participate. But we deserve to be treated fairly. So I hope now that this legislation has gone to the governor, he will ultimately see it as what he has indicated, in my opinion, that's important to him, and that is a level playing field, fair government, and as a Republican governor, the free enterprise system. That's how he made his money.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is,
okay.
And made other people money.
Okay, so that's where we are.
All right, so we're going to take a little break, hear from our sponsors. Yeah, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the bill itself. We're going to talk about the finish there. I think you and I should have a little engagement on where the casino lobby failed and where there is still much work to do, because this bill came out of the House and Senate through conference committees. I want to tell you the little story about where the press, through the casino, encouragement, was saying that somehow I was being unethical. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the big finish, where we go from here with this bill. This bill has traveled through these 96 episodes of this podcast. This has been our story. This is grassroots living. This is grassroots politicking. This is important for so many people, and for those that listen to this podcast, important for us to understand how government works and how it can still be involved all the way down to the end. Let's talk about what the lobbyists did right, what they did wrong. Let's talk about what the bill is, and let's talk about what's coming up next in the next segment. Listen to me and Hermie talk about our businesses, and we'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers, and we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina, that's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers, and Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, leaning right.
I'm Hermie Sadler, turning left, leaning right, and turning left with Sadler and the Senator. As always, is powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Thanks for listening to those ads of you and me and our sponsors. Where we left off was basically our lawsuit. We got to this point. We got people thinking about this. Legislation was offered by Aaron Rouse, senator out of Virginia Beach, former Virginia Tech football star, NFL player. Worked through the committees. His bill becomes the dominant bill, goes through to the House. They throw on a VGT casino kill bill. And then a conference committee report comes out. And actually, before the conference committee is appointed, the bills are in conflict. So what happens here in Virginia is you get two different bills. When they're not rectified, there are differences between the House and the Senate. We asked for a committee in conference. I, surprisingly, did not ask for it. Sitting in my chair, when they announced the differences on the bill would be worked out by a conference committee. For the Senate, the conference committee was Aaron Rouse, Mamie Locke, Bill Stanley. Never asked for it. Never wanted, was surprised. I thought it might be Bryce Reeves or somebody else. And then I was named by Creed Deeds in the conference committee report. He's the chairman of Commerce and Labor to work the things out. In conference committee, for those people that know or don't know, so you take the two bills, you sit down, you try to negotiate a workable solution between both bodies in a conference report that everybody votes on the bill ultimately. That's the ultimate last vote on the bill. Aaron took the lead on this because it was his bill. He's very passionate about it. I give him a lot of credit. He's worked very hard on this bill. He's a Democrat, but still very conscious legislator. Mm-hmm. Conscientious legislator, not conscious. We're hopefully awake most of the time. But he goes and talks to Luke Torian, the chairman of House of Propes, the Democrats, the Republicans on the House side, comes back. He has a solution. In the meantime, the press now, because I got appointed to the conference committee, brings up the issue of whether I should be ethically involved in any of this because I represent you, represent Pace-O-Matic. We've had our litigation. Creed Deeds, the chairman of Commerce and Labor, who appoints the committee members to the conference, says, I trust Bill Stanley. He knows a lot about this. I was even asked by
What a novel concept.
Right.
Have somebody on a conference committee that knows the inner workings, not just what people read in the paper, but all the inner workings of what goes into the legislation and why it's needed.
Well, and it was a great compliment. And, you know, he's a good guy. And look, I'm a fair dealer. So didn't ask to be on it, didn't need to be on it, but he put me on it. So I was like, okay. I told Aaron, I will offer you legal advice on the issues of legalized skill games and games of chance. And I'll help you through the process. But Aaron, so the press like makes a big, huge deal. Virginia Mercury, the casino.coms. Oh, Senator Stanley, you know, works
casino.coms. Wonder what position they'll take, Bill.
It was not our
Jesus
position.
Lord.
And so got a lot of heat over the weekend. And I was very honest. You know, look, I got an ethics opinion from our
Would the heat you got over the weekend been the same if the bill had failed?
There would be no heat.
Okay.
There would be nothing.
You would have done everything that you did with its passing. You would have done those same things. But if it had failed.
Well, think about it this way, Herm. When Louise Lucas called you up, when we had our injunction vacated,
right,
the games became illegal. Pace-O-Matic and other skill game operators, shut down their games legally. They've always lived by the law. Then we got calls, not just from Louise Lucas, from other people. What's Bill Stanley going to do about this? Well, Bill Stanley had abstained because I thought I had to. Mm-hmm. Bill Stanley had no intent of offering a bill because, you know, I didn't want to look like I'm trying to favor you.
And I told Louise Lucas that the first morning. She said, does Bill have any legislation or going to drop any legislation? I said, Louise, he doesn't, and I wouldn't ask him to. Yeah. And if I did, he wouldn't anyway because he's my attorney. And that's not ethically what he would be willing to do.
And again, I become the lightning rod.
Right.
And I thought it was better stay out of that. I wrote a letter asking for a legal ethics opinion. They said I could participate in the bill debates, talk to people about it.
But at this point, our legislation, our lawsuit is done.
It's done.
They pushed the Supreme Court that ultimately put the circuit court judge in a position where
and let's talk about
it's out.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a minute. But so I had done those things.
So what do you want?
Well, but when it came back to the letter, I was surprised. I was like, okay, I can participate. Participated in the Commerce and Labor Committee, made sure it went to finance. This is what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for Pace-O-Matic. I'm doing it because I believe in it. I'm not doing it for you. The paid for digital media decided that I was the object, and the casino lobbyists from all the reporters told me they were pushing the story that I should not be involved as a conference committee member to figure out the last throes of this bill to get it together and approved by both sides. Well, one, I didn't advocate for it. Two, they implied that I was then Pace-O-Matic's representative because I'm their lawyer, that somehow I'd be working for them. Three, they thought, well, because I represent you and you and I are friends, then I'm going to get you a big deal, which kind of pissed me off. I mean, it pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because I've never done that here and won't ever start doing that here. And yet they were just going out to try to impugn my character and integrity. It really ticked me off to the point where, you know, not that I did anything different, but I might have been motivated to be more involved than what I thought it'd be. And as I told the bill sponsor, Aaron Rouse, listen, man, I'm here as a resource. You need me, let me know. It was his bill. He needs to go work out the terms. And guess what? He went out and worked out the terms. He comes to me and says, hey, we have an agreement. There was an issue about the percentages on taxes. You know, I give him, advice. Well, the House wanted one tax rate, Senate had another. It started out at 15% tax on the machines. That is a gross revenue tax. It went to 22. The House wanted 25 and a referendum and some other things. And I just said, well, why don't you split the baby? 23 and a half. That's the only advice I gave him. Came back and said, no, they're insisting on 25. I said, do what you got to do, man. I'll sign your conference committee report. He gave some of the things that the House wanted. He put together a conference committee report that I thought was pretty stout. It wasn't in my client's best interest in terms of the tax rate.
Tax rate, yeah.
Because it went to 25. I mean, it started at 15, so it jumped 10%. I mean, it jumped 30% in terms of total tax revenues that were now generated. Highest tax rate for any gaming or gambling machine or anything in Virginia. I mean, it's right at the top. Mm-hmm. I didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't have anything to do. And then the press made a big deal that in the conference committee report, the number of machines in a truck stop went from 7 to 10, probably to grab more of that revenue.
Right.
I was not involved in that at all, but the press made it seem like it was.
I know you and I
In Twitter, some of the press were saying, friends
put
in
my
high
hand
places.
on a Bible through that whole process.
We never
You
talked.
and I never discussed anything that was being talked about in a conference report at all.
And so I had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do. I signed the conference report. He told me what was going on. That was it. And then I was getting a lot of heat for that stuff. And then we got to the floor to try to get last Friday this conference committee report out. And I'm going to tell you why. The casino lobbies were sending mailers out throughout the weekend to various legislators with their pictures on it, saying that we're somehow supporting casino-style slot machines in bars, restaurants, and convenience stores, which we weren't, and then robocalls, from what I understood. So I wanted this thing done. I mean, I took the slings and arrows. I mean, I had nothing to do with this conference report. Supported it, support the skill game industry for the reasons we've talked about. And yet they were pouring it on. So Friday became a very important day. Everybody agreed, House and Senate in conference. They set out what the parameters were for the bill itself and what it would be. And I've got this here. We'll talk about this in a minute. But we had a floor fight, which we shouldn't have had. Friday, everybody's trying to leave. But suddenly, Aaron Rouse presents, I've got a conference report, one of the first ones coming out. It's on skill games. There's some slight changes. He stands up into our chamber and says the following, here's what my bill is. Here's what we've done. Listen to this.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of the conference report and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I am proud of the work we did on this conference report, which is a critical small business issue in Virginia. The conference report provides a strong framework for regulating taxes and enforcing skill games to help small business owners benefit from sustainable supplemental income. This report is an enhancement of the House and Senate bills with strong guardrails and framework to regulate and tax skill game market while rooting out illegal gambling and many casinos. This conference report represents a true compromise, and that means everyone is not happy. We kept all the language from the House substitute that aligns with skill game market and is comparable to other gaming policies. We also addressed the concerns that we heard along the way, such as strengthening enforcement for prevention of underage access, contract protections for store owners, and addressing the tax rate and setting a limit on the number of terminals per store. With these amendments, I believe we have achieved the intent of the bill, which is to help small businesses and optimize revenue for the Commonwealth. Here's specifically what's in the skill games report. Conference report, a cap of 4 games per ABC license, establishment, 10 per truck stop. This is a reduction from the prior regulatory period for skill games in the original bill. A 25% tax rate for these games, which will enable Virginia to collect critical revenue while also allowing small businesses benefit from sustainable supplemental income. A voluntary exclusion program, which mirrors the existing program for the Virginia Lottery. There are also provisions to ensure people under the age of 21 are not able to play the games, including a Class 1 misdemeanor for anyone who allows a minor to play the games. ABC will be the regulatory agency for the first 2 years, and then Lottery will take over once they are able to develop regulations. Provisions that protect small business owners from prohibiting inducements, requiring use agreements that don't lock small business into long contracts, and more. And the bill strengthens enforcement by ensuring all registrants undergo a thorough background check, and there is a Class 1 misdemeanor for anyone that falsifies records to attain a registration. This conference report also sets up a clear skill game reporting system to ensure we can monitor and track every dollar that goes into a skill game and every dollar that is paid out. This will protect our Commonwealth and ensure that the games are functioning appropriately.
Madam President,
For what purpose does
And
the
now
senator
it
from
starts.
Roanoke rise?
will the Senator from Virginia Beach yield for a question?
Will the senator
yield.
from Virginia Beach yield?
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator yields. Senator Suderline has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank the senator. I'd like to take this by for the day, so that we can see it. I don't know why we're doing conference reports on today. So I would just respectfully ask if we could.
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion? Yeah. So other senators were asked by the casino lobby when they realized actually that the conference report was coming out, they wanted to pass by for the day.
So they could rally their troops
and get a weekend and try to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the reason why we put it out on Friday. Had an agreement with the House, had everybody in line. Let's just get it out. Let's get this past us. Let's focus on the other stuff. And ultimately what happened was both Dave Suderline, who's in my party, and a couple other Democrats tried to get the bill passed by for the day to give the casinos a weekend. Aaron Rouse stood tall. And quite frankly, what you'll hear is myself and Bryce Reeves and other people that believe in skill and the small businesses, when he stood up and did that, usually we tell each other when we're going to do something like that. He did not do that. When he didn't do that, well, we had a case of the butt. So here, listen to what happens when he makes that motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Senator from Roanoke, Senator Suderline, may continue.
I move that the conference report go by for the day.
All conference reports, sir?
I don't believe that. Yes.
This is the only one.
This is the only one, I believe, left.
So I'm just asking for this one then.
Now you hear it.
The question is,
you get all brisked up.
Madam President, I would object to that motion.
Bryce Reeves. Now remember, conference reports and when you ask something to go by for the day, it goes by to the next calendar day. It's usually a consent motion. We don't object half the time, most of the time, all the time. But there was a reason why we needed to get this out into the desk of the governor and stop messing with it. And Bryce Reeves stood up and objected. That caused a problem in our caucus, on the floor. And now you hear our leader, the minority leader, Ryan McDougall, step in and say, hey, wait a minute. We need to slow this down a little.
President, hold on.
the question is,
He's telling me to hold on, by the way. This is Ryan.
Chair recognizes the senator from Hanover, Senator McDougall.
Madam President, seems to be some discussion around me that needs to be occurring in a calmer
next to
direction.
him.
So could this go by temporarily? Let's work through the docket, see if we can have some conversations to come to a agreed upon place.
Without objection, Senate Bill 344 goes by temporarily to find an agreed upon place.
I love her. She talks in plain language. So ultimately what happened was Bryce and others, we want to get this out. We didn't want to mess with it anymore. Suderline did not tell us he was going to do that. We had a conference report that everybody agreed on. So we got a little chippy. And we had a little meeting. We had to go down and have a little meeting about this. And ultimately, he backed off. And the conference report
Let me ask you this,
passed.
Because I don't know this, and I may be asking a bad question you may not want to answer here. But did somebody from a casino or a lobbyist reach out to Suderline and ask him to slow this down?
I can't say that, but other senators were asked to get the conference report passed by for the day, who then told me that they were approached by lobbyists from the casino. So yes, I can't say about Dave.
Him specifically, but
Dave might have been very based on principle. I mean, Dave was like, hey, this is kind of new. But Dave had read both bills for a long time. He'd been engaged, and it was explained the differences between that. We have conference reports where they go to conference and they said, well, you know what we did? We agreed to the House position and took off the amendments put on there by the Senate. And then we vote 2 minutes later. This bill wasn't that much different. Actually, it got better from, the House to the Senate version, got closer to the Senate version. And the House had already passed it like 54 votes. So, this seemed to be a slow roll. I can't say Suderline, he usually does everything based on principle. He may want to have read it, but there were others in the Senate chamber that were asked to pass the bill by for the day. And there were enough people, clearly 32-8, that voted in favor of the conference report to legalize skill games in Virginia that thought, no, let's get this done right now.
Right.
And we're explained. And so let me tell you exactly, what actually was said by Senator Rouse, the sponsor of the bill. But let's go through for at least a little bit where the bill is right now in terms of what is going on as a bill to the governor after signed by the lieutenant governor. And so I've got this somewhere if I can get to it. And so here are the terms, basically. I swear I'm going to get to it. All right. So basically, it defines skill games in a way that the law can determine what's a skill game and not a skill game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to clean up the industry of the illegal skill games, okay? That definition is really important. But it caps 4 games per ABC licensed establishment. That would be an ABC store or restaurant or bar. 10 units per truck stop. Now, I was accused of that went from 7 to 10, that I had some influence. I never was involved in those negotiations, discussions, had nothing to do with that. Didn't know it until I saw the bill.
Right.
25% tax rate for the games. It started out 22, went to 25.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually against Pace-Max interest, but for small businesses and for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, I'm telling you right now, the collection on those skill games with the number of games that will be allowed, we're talking $300 million a year going up,
mm-hmm.
which is more than the casinos can ever generate, more than gambling on sports betting ever generates, more than the lottery generates. And so that is a huge win for Virginia, not so much for Pace-O-Matic and other skill game operators and vendors and creators of those games, but still good for Virginia. The bill in its final form also had a voluntary exclusion program, which mirrors the existing program by the lottery, which says, if you're a problem gambler, you've admitted that, you can't play the games. Has to be played. The games have to be played by people 21 years or older. They're in ABC establishments, so they're going to monitor that because they want to keep their beer and their wine in the cooler.
Right.
Establishes ABC as a regulatory agency for at least a year and a half before the Virginia Gaming Commission comes online, so they can monitor it after that point in time. It's probably going to be a 2-year process, and protect small business owners from having to enter into long-term contracts, predatory contracts from any of the makers of these skill games to either get inducements to make contract or locked into long-term contracts. So, and ultimately, the biggest thing is strengthening enforcement, getting rid of the backroom, small casinos, the vape shop stuff, all under the ABC regulated
we've wanted
thing.
From the very beginning.
Right, which presents to us for the first time the same thing you were talking about, Hermie, which was a tax and regulatory framework that kept these games going in good businesses, generated revenue for that business and the state and the player, but ultimately kept out the riffraff and maintained them in a way that would be beneficial to small business, not detrimental.
One of the false narratives that they being the casinos, have tried to push onto the general public and change, put out the false narrative, in my opinion, is they want to say, in layman's terms, because of Hermie and Bill's lawsuit and what they accomplished in court, that opened up the floodgates for all these illegal games.
Which is wrong.
Those games proliferated on July 1,
because
2021,
SB 971.
because Ralph Northam signed SB 971 to ban the operation of legal skill games in these ABC licensed industries.
Very correct.
So what happened that day? The people that did it the right way shut the machines off, and guess what? The people that don't follow the law and were trying to run games of chance and all these vape shops and back rooms and pool halls and all that, they came in by the truckloads that day.
Yeah.
And they changed.
They were calling you.
Yeah.
They were calling you and saying,
Hermie,
hey, man,
if you lay off your lawsuit, man, we just give us a couple of weeks. We can bring you all the games of chance you want, and we'll run them. But the messaging was, hey, these skill games are all over these back rooms, and it was not that way. And one of the good things is some of the money generated from this will go towards giving given the teeth to law enforcement and Commonwealth's attorneys to clean up the line of what's right and what's wrong, and actually give them the funding and the teeth to do something about it.
For once in Virginia, we know what's legal and illegal.
Right.
And the law enforcement can clean it all up.
Right.
And there's money for that in the skill game tax. But what we've got right now, so we got a bill, 32-8 out of the Senate, 51 votes in the House, goes to the governor. But there is a chance, a really good chance now, especially when you build $300 million a year into the income base, the revenue generation for the state, that this is going to be here to stay, which again demonstrates that we were right when we were told we were wrong. When they said we have no chance to win, we won. When we lost because of the casino industry really pushed against it in the second appeal, it woke everybody up and said, wait a minute, we need this as a part of the gaming industry. And now you have, going to the governor, a bill which is reasonable, benefits Virginia, doesn't benefit you. I didn't have anything to do with that. I guess you get 10 machines in there. A higher tax rate for the state, doesn't benefit Pace-O-Matic. We've got a bill now going to the governor.
Hey, look, just to be clear,
that's going to make it right, hopefully.
Just to
July
be clear.
1.
All right, truck stops, let's take those, put them aside for a second. 4 machines in, let's say, convenience stores, restaurants, and taverns and bars. Mm-hmm. 4 games and a 25% tax. That's going to make it unfeasible for some convenience stores and restaurants and taverns to operate that number of games at that high rate of tax. But Bill, that's okay. Right. That's okay. We don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry on every corner to be able to offer these games, because we want people that have the resources and the business operations and other aspects of their business to tote their own part of the skill games. And I think Senator Rouse said it a couple times, and maybe I'm getting complimentary income, or
not the basic.
Not if you're going to operate
the add-on that makes a difference between a win and a lose.
If you've got a convenience store or a restaurant that you're depending on skill game revenue to be your primary source of revenue,
you're in the wrong business.
You're in the wrong business, and it won't work, and it shouldn't work.
Right.
And so that's why these things are important, because there'll be some of my locations that I'll look at and say,
well, you've seen that before.
Sure.
I mean, you looked at when you had skill games. Sure. It wasn't working.
We're going to have to take some and look at it and say, hey.
But they're registered, they're monitored, they're policed, they're legal, gives the player an excellent opportunity of winning, and they know what the risk is in losing, but gets rid of all these bad games.
This
bill will clean out the bad stuff. This
should subsidize certain small businesses that just need, number one, it should be their constitutional right, and the government shouldn't be.
Totally agree with that.
The government shouldn't be saying you can and you can't. The government.
But we're at that point, and they said you can't.
The government should be doing what they're doing now, is set the parameters,
level playing field,
and let the business owner decide, is this workable for me? Does this fit in my business plan? Yeah. But it cannot be, and is never meant to be, and I'm glad it's not viewed as the sole business plan of a convenience store or a restaurant, bar, tavern. We don't want that.
It's not your winning solution.
It is not. Cannot
for
be
a good business. But let me say this: a 3-year fight, you and me, brother.
Yeah.
Culminating where, you and I have been debating back and forth whether this could ever happen. Perhaps there's winning for these small businesses by you and I losing.
Sure.
And I hate to lose. I took it really hard. You took it hard.
Sure,
we put all of the emotion, the passion, small business owners' hopes and dreams and fears on our backs.
Especially,
we took that on for that reason. Pace-O-Matic supported us, but they weren't the lead. It was you. It was me. We told Pace-O-Matic, look, you need to be involved in Virginia, commit to Virginia. They've done that. They've really absorbed themselves into communities, which has proven this company to be a really good company. Even though I represent them, they really did the best they could to make sure that they said to Virginia, We're not an out-of-state casino. We're not the horse race track over in Churchill Downs. We're different. And I think they did that to repair their reputation, their status, and quite frankly, then they were able to demonstrate through grassroots efforts that these small business owners had a stake in the gaming market and should have that and will save their businesses and allow them to grow and thrive. But it all came down to when you looked at me that night at Wintergreen and said,
I tried to look at you.
let's fight them. You said, let's do this.
Look at the one in the middle. Yeah.
Right.
But
And here we are. So I feel pretty proud. I mean, we lost. I hate losing in court. I hate a motion granted to dismiss or my injunction dismissed. I hate that. That's personal to me.
right.
But what I've seen in this General Assembly, overcoming all the efforts of the casinos, all the efforts that they've done, the lobbying efforts, everything they've done, besmirching my character, going after everybody else, sending robocalls and mailers into individual legislators' districts, sending them to the people that they represent. We're doing something unchristian
to my
here.
daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
From the casinos of all people. Saying that this
get
is
rid
bad.
of convenience store slot machines.
Don't you love how
it's
gray
bad
machines,
for Virginia?
gray games and gray machines, scuzzy machines became convenience store slot machines, which is exactly what the casinos put in their own damn place.
Yeah.
Slot machines.
Yeah.
And so, what they try to do is conflate us, the skill games, your stuff, with these games of chance that flooded the market after the ban and after skill games turned their machines off. When that didn't work, then it became a slot machine. It became a casino instrument into a convenience store, truck stop, restaurant, or bar. They were desperate. And so let's just briefly, as we end this episode segment, go into that strategy. When you and I started this lawsuit, we were mocked by the casino and lobby industry. Fools, stupid, this will go away. And what they didn't anticipate that we were going to do our homework and run this court case the right way. And we got the injunction. When we got the injunction, what did they say? Fools, home cooking, because it was in Greensville County where Hermie's business is, ignoring the fact that the special judge that was appointed from the Supreme Court came from Hampton.
Right.
And looked at the evidence. Then fools, we're going to show you, we're going to write stuff in the budget to make where you won wrong and force your lawsuit into another angle. What they did at that point is they changed the game. They got a legislator to put it in the budget. People voted for it, changed the criminal code, changed our lawsuit while litigation was pending. We're not supposed to be doing anything in legislation. They did it anyway. We talked about that last week with Delegate Knight. And what they then did was say, oh, we got you now. Because it did change our lawsuit. It made it harder because what they did by putting the criminal code of outlawing skill games in the budget, most of the legislators voted for the budget. So the Supreme Court said, it's obvious that the legislature's intent is to make illegal skill games and they're not protected by the First Amendment. Well, guess what? They would have been smarter by letting this litigation continue. Yours continue. Continue the temporary injunction, not get a final result. Then guess what? The legislature would not have acted and should not have acted. But by killing our lawsuit with their little crafty things, they won a battle, but are losing the war. And then they went in and they made mistake after mistake. They did not deal with skill game operators. They did not treat them as human beings. They came in like a bull moose and tried to bully people around. A lot of these new legislators had these operators, these convenience store, truck stop, restaurants, bars in their districts. They were hearing from those people that vote that we need this. This is a part of our local economy, our small business economy. They blew that one. They had opportunities to make an agreement. They said, nope, we're going to go hell-bent for leather all the way to the wall. And guess what they got? They fought their way down to the bottom, to the point where they start taking on legislators, pointing fingers, saying people are bad. And you know what? 32-8 in the Senate says that was a horrible legislative effort on their part.
Yeah.
It was tone deaf when it came to Virginia. And when they had an opportunity to actually set the playing field and be a part and partner with Virginia, back in the day when rather than work out a deal, when skill games shut down and the proliferation of VGTs, video game terminals, and slot machines came in, they could have had a deal then. They went 2 years without making a legislative solution that would have included skill games. It cost Virginia almost $1 billion. It caused lots of business to rely on these illegal games, and they didn't care about Virginia because they wanted it all.
Yeah.
Keep it small, control it all. That was a bad move on their part. And now they're reaping what they sow. And I'm telling you, that was a horrible play on their part. They hired 73 lobbyists. Some of them,
You said it.
Called you and me everything but a human being.
You said it just a moment ago. You said, even though some of the stuff was kind of done backdoor and writing criminal code change into the budget and all these things that they shouldn't have done, you said that the circuit court judge, basically coming down from the Supreme Court, said prior to this legislative session that you're currently in, basically said, we believe it's the intent of the General Assembly to ban skill games, make them illegal. But as we sit here right now, it's clear that the will of the General Assembly is to fairly tax and regulate skill games and let small businesses, the ones that do it the right way and follow the rules and stay within the guardrails, they should be able to participate and compete and have the right to operate their businesses this way. So that in itself,
83 members of the Virginian General Assembly in 2024 in the last week have now said skill games should be illegal. So now it goes on to the governor.
So it should be legal.
Should be legal,
right.
Tax and regulated.
Right.
Now it goes on to the governor. But the problem that we have right now, which is what's coming up, what's next? It's not over. We're having a victory lap here of sorts.
Right.
But now this goes to the governor, and you got Democrats creating a budget that's going to come out Thursday here. By the time you listen to that, it's come out by then. Going to reject most of, if not all, the governor's initiatives. Skill games is in it. New college is in it. Some of the budgetary priorities are in it. The governor is probably going to be peed off, pissed off, ticked off, and may either massively amend it and veto it or veto it. So we have many more miles to travel here because the governor's office may see this as a Democrat initiative. Now, if he vetoes the bill, that's going to be a problem. There's $300 million plus built into this budget that the Democrats have crafted. You take out skill games, it's going to be a problem. But you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, don't rest on your laurels, Hermie. What we're seeing in front of us in the next week, 2 weeks, month, is that skill games is still just pawn in life. Still just pawn in game of life. This is going to be an issue all the way till the final budget is signed. Now, I think the anchor to it, $300 million. Where are you going to find that somewhere else? I think the problem with it is if the governor's office, executive mansion, sees this as a Democrat initiative and the Democrats have ignored all the governors or Republican initiatives, then it's all on the table. It's free. It's a free play.
A Democratic initiative, so no Republicans agreed with it?
Agreed with what?
I'm questioning
No. I guess I'm saying on the bill, it's Aaron Rouse,
sure.
Louise Lucas, Tippy Francis on it.
32-8.
Still. Yeah. There's so much more political drama coming up in the next 30 days here in Virginia.
See, that's the difference between me and you.
The General Assembly session.
You, the politician, and you should and understand all the politics.
Right.
I look at it because I'm not in politics anymore.
Don't think it's a done deal, brother.
I'm not thinking it is a done deal. What I'm going to bed at tonight thinking, number one, I'll always be thankful and appreciative of the fight that we've been through. You and I both know a lot of people that we saved their businesses and their livelihoods over 3 years.
It's huge.
That is a huge thing.
Huge difference.
So I know there's politics in play and things that are going on, but what I have to believe in, what I have to find hope in is that we turn the narrative around on the skill game issue in the Commonwealth of Virginia to give these small businesses the opportunity.
Establish
this is because of
skill game operators in Virginia that care about Virginia.
This fundamentally toes the line of the free enterprise system. Yeah. So I've got to believe this governor believes in the free enterprise system. So let's hope politics doesn't get in the way of protecting small businesses and standing up for the free enterprise system in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
We shall hope.
We'll see.
But quite frankly, I think you're going to see some real skullduggery going on in the Senate and the House.
That's going to be unfortunate. Yeah. But I'm telling you.
But the thing is, would you sacrifice something like this that helps small business, takes $3 million,
that's what we'll
$100
find
million
out
of the budget?
we'll find out
And that's what
what's truly important to the governor.
But we have more to talk about.
Yeah.
But today is a victory lap of sorts. Thank you for
From
your
where we
dedication.
started to where we are now, it's been a load.
And you have taken on your principles, character, integrity, ran for office, took some slings and arrows. I mean, but you stood up for all these small business owners, and I got to thank you for that. And I stood with you.
Well, thank you.
And look, now I kind of understand because in the last week I was taking it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never had my character integrity.
All
I'm honest,
anybody
in
wants
question.
in
I'm
life,
never in question.
all anybody, and we have a right to get it, is a fighting chance,
Right.
an equal opportunity.
Yeah.
The government the General Assembly, you and your colleagues, and I know you did, were in the minority on a lot of these things that took place.
A ton.
But the government should put the guidelines and the guardrails in place and let the free market figure it out.
Amen, brother.
And that wasn't what was going on until now.
No.
So now we have a chance.
But they wouldn't have gotten here. People would not have given it this kind of consideration unless we did what we did.
And no question
So I'm
about
proud
that.
of that.
We had a
Cost
chance,
us time, money,
a 2.5
passion,
a 2.5 year
good days and
opportunity
bad days. We won.
to take the black hat off of the skill game industry and try to put the white hat on it. And we did a lot of that by introducing or making sure the people in the General Assembly knew that this was about a lot more than just whether you liked or didn't like people in the skill game industry.
Yep.
This was the Constitution. This is small business owners, families, employees, these small town communities, and the revenue generated by these small businesses, all these things. And when people sit down and are willing to, which I had a hard time getting people to do in Richmond, but if people are willing to sit down and listen and understand the full picture of really what's going on here, a lot more people came to our side because of that. And for that, I'm thankful.
Hermie Sadler 4, Casinos 1, when they got the injunction vacated.
Yeah.
Going on to the governor's desk, got a lot more miles to travel, got a lot more things to talk about, but we are on the way. Good efforts from grassroots gets good results and makes changes that helps people and small businesses.
And I want to say
in
this.
Virginia.
I want to say this before we go. I want to personally thank
Me?
you. I want to personally thank every legislator in the House and in the Senate, even those, because I know some that have contacted me that voted no because maybe they don't like they think it needs more parameters or a little more tweaking. Maybe they hoping the governor will not veto it, but maybe amend it slightly to get back in, whatever the case may be. But I want to thank everybody, every delegate and every senator for being open-minded about this issue, because
Much more than years before,
because it is about much more than what the casinos want. And it's about much more than the bad reputation that they tried to give the skill game industry.
And when I was in Commerce and Labor, saw the different committees, place was packed.
Yep.
Small business owners, supporters, players of the game, they all showed up. It was a grassroots effort. That means this has a great chance of getting beyond the fight that's going to go on between the Democrat-controlled legislature and Governor Youngkin's office over the budget. Hopefully it's going to survive. We're going to keep you updated on that. But great effort, Hermie Sadler. I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud to call you friend. I love you to death, but we're here because of that. And that's why this episode is so special. This is a victory lap of sorts, but this is a part of the process, which reminds us why we say to everybody who listens, get involved, get activated. Skill games may not be your thing, but there may be something that's important to your locality or state that you're passionate about. Get involved in local politics, get involved at state level, make us be held accountable. Otherwise, big companies come in and dictate the process and dictate the outcomes, and then small businesses lose. And this is a case study on how, with perseverance, with two guys just having a couple cocktails saying this ain't right, we're going to fight it, turns into a movement that saves 6,000 or more small businesses throughout Virginia to allow in the gaming market, which I don't like the gaming market, but to participate. That's fairness. That's why this is so important, what we do here in Virginia. So, man, thank you for what you do. A small victory lap, more to do, and we'll keep you informed.
We've come a long way. Got a ways to go, but we've come a long
I'm
way.
Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator. As always, is powered by Pacematic. Thank you to all of our listeners and our supporters. We will continue to monitor the fight, and also thanks to all the small business owners that continue to reach out and show their appreciation and support for what we're doing. And it's been quite a journey.
We'll see you next week. God bless you all.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson with SaveWithConrad.com. You've heard me bragging on the podcast for years about helping people save money on their current house, but did you know that I can help you with your next house as well? That's right, we can get you into your next house with zero down. No money down loan programs are still available, and I know it sounds too good to be true, but we can do it for you. And by the way, home ownership is more affordable than you might think. We routinely turn renters into homeowners, and we hear back that their new house payment is more affordable than what they were paying in rent. Why would you keep doing that? Stop throwing your money away, paying for someone else's mortgage, and start building wealth for your family. And let my family help at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit to do this. We can improve credit scores down to the 500s, and it's worth mentioning, we never say no. We say not yet, but here's how. You need a game plan to buy a house, and that's where we come in at SaveWithConrad.com. We'll ask you, what down payment do you want to make? And zero is an acceptable answer. And what monthly payment do you want? And then it's time to go shopping. Find out how easy it is and how affordable it is to become a homeowner at SaveWithConrad.com.